United Nations at its core, all other multilateral nuclear non-proliferation agreements, starting from the JCPOA. And another point we discussed at length, with a lot of understanding and convergences, is the need to increase connectivity between our two continents. Just last Monday, a few days ago, the European Union foreign ministers agreed on ways to strengthen connectivity between Europe and Asia in a sustainable, comprehensive and rules-based manner. And I'm happy to see that this approach is also shared by our Asian partners. So indeed, we have decided to use all the potential for bringing Asia and Europe closer together, not only on the level of transport and infrastructures, but also on digital and economic links. As the Chancellor said, there is a clear commitment between us to maintain and strengthen open free trade, to work for the reform of WTO. Later this afternoon, in a few hours, we will sign a new partnership free trade and investment agreement with Singapore, only a few months after we sign important agreements with Japan, and others are in the making. So there is, I would say, a new wave of agreements, trade agreements, but also partnership agreements the European Union is promoting around the world and in the Asia-Pacific region in particular. Let me conclude by saying that this summit was accompanied by many important side events that reported to us the results of their work: civil society, business, trade unions, youth, parliamentarians from both our continents. And this is the real essence of our partnership: bringing people together, empowering people. And I think that this summit gives us the possibility to use the full potential of our joint strength. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Minister Kang.
Yes, thank you very much. Very honored to be part of this press conference with the Chancellor, the High Representative, and my counterpart from the Philippines. First of all, congratulations to President Tusk and High Representative Mogherini for a very successful ASEM summit. Asia and Europe are closer together thanks to their efforts that have resulted in a very successful outcome and very fruitful conduct of these meetings. I think we all very much walk away from the meetings assured of the importance that we all place upon the rule-based international order and the centrality of multilateralism in this, whether it's trade or security affairs or climate change. And I think our leaders walk away knowing that we have partners not just in our regions, but across the world, in Europe or Asia, that share the same vision, and they are committed to working towards that vision. My President was very happy to share his thoughts on what that means on a policy level. As global partners working on global issues, we emphasized three things. That is the notion of inclusivity, not as a matter of economic policy, but as a philosophy that should undergird all government decision-making, and basically to ensure that we leave no one behind, which is also the philosophy that undergirds the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. Secondly, we need to harness the potential of the fourth industrial revolution that benefits the people and not fall into the same trap of technology working out its way that widens the gap rather than reduces. And we already see this happening. The digital gap is widening in many parts of the world because we're not taking the issue very seriously. But having said all of that, the potential of the fourth industrial revolution and all the technology that it implies has great potential, and we all need to work towards the benefits and to mitigate the negative consequences of that. Thirdly, the connectivity between Europe and ASEAN is something that we are also very keenly involved, and being one of the most wired countries in the world with an IT sector that is particularly enhanced, we're ready to contribute to enhancing and strengthening the connectivity within our regions, but also across Europe and Asia. We, of course, had this opportunity to brief other leaders on the developments on the Korean Peninsula. And thank you, Frederica. You've always been a solid supporter behind all of our diplomatic initiatives in this regard. But at the end, we have a very different situation on the Korean Peninsula from where we were 1 year ago, where we were faced with continued North Korean provocations and even talk of a potential for a military clash. to today, where we are solidly on the road to a peaceful diplomatic resolution of North Korea's nuclear missile challenge, coupled with a new phase in South-North Korean relations toward dialogue and reconciliation. 3 South-North Korean summits, 1 U.S.-North Korea summit, and more in the making. And so definitely we are in a very changed situation on the Korean Peninsula, and this would not have happened without the support that we have received from Frederica and her team, and certainly the members of the European Union as well. So, and this was a wonderful opportunity for us to brief and to assure the leaders here that we are definitely on the right track. If we stay this course, we get denuclearization, we get permanent peace on the Korean Peninsula, we will get connectivity between Europe and Asia even further strengthened as well. Because once you have North Korea as part of the normal economic activity on the Korean Peninsula, the peninsula will be the link between South Asia to the south and the Eurasian continent to the north. And of course, that has to be a great news for Asia-Europe connectivity as well. Simply put, Korean Peninsula free of nuclear weapons, permanently at peace, has to be good for peace and prosperity in that region, but also the Northeast Asia and the whole world indeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Finally, Foreign Minister of the Philippines.
Thank you. Good afternoon. We expressed our deepest appreciation to our host, the European Union, for the excellent arrangements and the warm hospitality. We congratulate President Donald Tusk on steering the ASEM summit to its successful conclusion today. The summit brings us to a tighter partnership between Asia and Europe to address challenges global in scale and import. Our talks covered a wide range of concerns in politics, economics, and culture, and I added migration. The Asian experience with Europe in history is the other face of the European experience with Asia. At this summit, no judgments were made about that experience. What there was instead was a determined and cooperative effort to discover the best possibilities of the greatest mutual benefit by moving forward. ASEM's value added was to show how informal dialogue can move forward even on the most difficult issues. Among the issues, I have no doubt, developments in the Korean Peninsula are the most important today and in the future. An ASEAN EU meeting will take place later in the day to talk about extending a 40-year dialogue into the next 40 years. 2 regions that account for some of the best functioning economies and organized societies of the present are involved here, and there's clearly something there of value we intend to keep growing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have 6 minutes for the questions, so we have to be, please, and the answers. Please be very concise and say clearly to whom you're posing your question to. I'll start with Emre.
Thank you very much. Emre Peker with the Wall Street Journal. This is a question for everyone on the podium who will take it. On the conclusions, you mentioned that the leaders agreed to promote transparency, a level playing field, and innovative funding mechanisms. Now that everyone in ASEM is signed on to this principle, do you expect China to dial back some of its practices with the Belt and Road Initiative, including closed tenders, non-transparent financing, and what kind of an impact do you see going forward and access for other Asian partners in big infrastructure projects in the region, as well as European companies who want to get involved?
Want to take it? As you want. Go ahead.
Wir erleben derzeit, dass sich die Wirtschaft in den asiatischen Staaten sehr beeindruckend und sehr positiv entwickelt. Das ist zum ersten gut für diese Staaten, zum zweiten aber auch eine große Chance für uns als Partner im wirtschaftlichen Austausch. Was wir uns natürlich erwarten, ist, dass Regeln eingehalten werden. Es gibt darüber hinaus von unserer Seite auch die Erwartungshaltung, dass in der WTO eine eine Reform stattfindet, dort wo es notwendig ist. Und ja, dort wo wir Protektionismus erleben, lehnen wir das ab. Freihandel muss immer fair, gerecht und auf Regeln basiert sein. Das gilt in beide Richtungen.
Okay, Fritz, over there at the front.
Peter Fritz, Austrian Television, ORF. High Representative, to see in Italy's budgetary plans and their possible rejection by the European Commission the potential for maybe worldwide contagion, for implications even beyond Europe as pertains to Asia, maybe?
I appreciate your effort to link the question to Asia. You might know that the basic rule of this press conferences is that we stick to the issues we discussed, and definitely this was not an issue we discussed during the summit. Not even. Try again.
Damon? Sorry. Okay, then Robin on the other side.
Robin Emmett from Reuters. Question for the High Rep. High Rep, we saw that you had bilateral meetings with Cambodia and Myanmar. I wondered, did you hear anything today that would avoid both those countries losing their special trade status under Everything But Arms? Thank you.
I had bilateral meetings with both. They are in different stages. With Cambodia, we have taken the decision to start the process of temporary withdrawal of the EBA trade preferences. I've discussed with the Prime Minister and his team what are our expectations for what should happen for this not to go on, and in particular the improvement of the political democratic climate. I would say in particular there is a lot of concern in Europe, but not only in Europe, about the dissolution in November last year of the main opposition party, and in general terms the narrowed democratic space for political opposition and civil society. We discussed this. I cannot say that we found solutions to any of these issues, but the European Union approach is always that of engaging and having a dialogue, especially when problems arise. We agreed that our teams would work together starting in these days and in the weeks to come, to go through a long list of issues that we have raised, together with our decision of suspending the trade preferences. And I am always hopeful, you know me, that positive change could come. So the work will continue. With Myanmar, it's a different stage. We are in the process of sending, in the coming weeks, a mission in Myanmar to discuss the issues that worries us related to, in particular, the situation in the Rakhine State, for which, as you know, the European Union has been very active, not only on the humanitarian side to support the Rohingyas in Bangladesh, but also elsewhere, but also on the political level, trying to support the full implementation of the Memorandum of Understanding that was signed bilaterally between Myanmar and Bangladesh, and also the MOUs that were signed with the UNHCR and the UNDP. I discussed this also with Filippo Grandi in the recent weeks. I encouraged the authorities of Myanmar to fully implement the memorandums they have signed, the agreements they have signed, to work in particular on accountability, because the results of the UN Independent International Fact-Finding Mission are extremely serious and worrying, and they have to respond to this kind of allegations and show willingness to have accountability, transparency, and to address the issues that are raised there. So we will continue to accompany Myanmar on its path towards democracy. It's a difficult process. We always knew it. Our support to the democratization of the country will not stop now, but this doesn't mean that we will close our eyes on violations that the international community see as worrying. But on the EBA, on the trade preferences, the decision has not been taken yet, but obviously there are rules that we need to follow, and you know that our trade preferences have the respect for human rights at their core. So I hope that there will be signs on the Myanmar authorities' side that could allow us to avoid that decision to be taken in the future.
One final question, because unfortunately we then need to move on.
Thank you. Deborah Haynes from Sky News. It's a question for Foreign Minister Kang. Obviously, South Korea has a comprehensive free trade agreement with the EU. Could you give us a sort of a realistic sense for people back in the UK, once the UK leaves the European Union, will the UK government be able to achieve the same level of free trade agreement with South Korea? Will it actually achieve an even better terms with South Korea? Or, given that the UK is a single country as opposed to a big bloc like the EU, will actually the terms of the free trade agreement between South Korea and the UK be on worse terms? Thank you.
Well, I won't go into hypotheticals, but we're very keen to maintain the excellent relationship that we've enjoyed with the UK as part of the European Union. The UK is our second largest trading partner in the European Union under the FTA. That's been very beneficial to both sides. And I think I can safely say that on both sides, the UK and us, we're very keen to maintain that level of collaboration. Obviously, this requires a lot of work, a lot of contingency planning, if I may put it that way, but within our own government, but in collaboration with our counterparts in the UK, we are already having serious discussions about this, and my president had an excellent discussion with Prime Minister May today. Thank you.
If I can remind us all, though, that as long as the UK is part of the European Union, it cannot negotiate nor conclude any separate trade agreements, and this includes the transition period. Right. For us to be all aware of what we're talking about.
With this, I have to conclude this press conference, but thank you very much for coming, and there is also ample material available, including the chair's statement.
Yeah, looking forward.